Hey, Patty. Good to see you. Good to see
Ooh,
you.
welcome to the Goodbye I Love You show. Yeah, go ahead, and Marty, over to you.
Yeah, no, thank you so much. I mean, this is kind of a somber, sad show to be doing today regarding Maui, and we've got some photographs from friends that have sent it over to us to share. And I just, have been wondering myself, really, like, what is the best way to memorialize all of our friends there that I lived there for a year that we love, and you know it's just been such a devastation with this fire and the destruction of Lahaina.
It is hard to believe when we're seeing it unfold in front of our eyes. And, the best we could do is, raise awareness, send goods and, volunteer people are going there volunteering, which is great. The Rotary clubs, of course, the Red Cross, the military, anything we could do. But there are volunteers that are just regular, civilians, as you would call it
Yeah,
you're in the
exactly.
military. But the point is, people just really want to help. They really want to help. And it's nice that, we're seeing that, and we're going to share some of those stories too.
Yeah, it's amazing. I just got started with today's show, and Nick Chahan, I don't know him, but he's coming in from LinkedIn. And thank you, Nick. He said he's purchasing clothes for the kids, and I was telling one of our assistants, CJ Grace, who lives in Maui, a wonderful English lady, um, or Australian or New Zealand. I'm just guessing from her accent. I just met her through Mark Jarrett that she's English, but she has a English accent. I was telling her yesterday how they're sending trailers over. There's a father and a daughter who have committed themselves to sending over trailers of, you know, former ownership. And so these people have donated these campers and trailers, Patty. And I think on the news, as I was watching ABC News, they're up to like 30 some campers and trailers that have been donated already.
Wow. Well, everything makes a difference, right? And you just need that one catalyst that keeps the momentum going. That one idea, and then it keeps going. And I like to see that people are doing the right thing with what they can. It's up to the capacity, but everybody has something to offer, I believe.
Yeah. And honestly, my allergies yesterday and today have been killing me. It's just all this eye is doing is tearing. But it probably has not cried as much um, as some of the horrible pictures that we received from several of friends. And I'll just mention them. CJ Grace's friends have been so nice to help out. They're directly from Maui. Paul Deslauriers has sent over some pictures. Paul is an organizational development consultant and grassroots organizer, Patty, with 36 years experience. And we also have
Wow, I think he
today
knows what he's doing.
Steve Phillips is been dishing out the food. Steve, as a chef, my toque is off to you. My hat is off to
Yeah.
you. Thousands of meals, I believe that Steve has been working on, and just to help people. It's just been unbelievable. All the people that want to help Steve.
Yeah, welcome to the Goodbye I Love You. And it is somber, and we're trying to keep the spirits up because we want to give people hope. We want to give people hope. And as heavy hearted as we are, and a bucket full of tears, we want to give people hope. And that's why we have the show, to raise awareness and to see where can people go, what can we do, and also thank you for your service.
Well, thank you very much for having us on. And, there is a lot of hope. Maui sometimes is referred to as the heart chakra of this planet. And and especially Lahaina, and even though that has been mostly destroyed, it's opened up everyone's heart chakra around the world. And so much love and support is coming in. Um, everyone just wants to help and give.
Yeah, and the list obviously keeps climbing, higher and higher. So I know that we have over 1,000 people missing, but we're just seeing now the breaking news a couple of minutes ago of the list is continuing to climb by the hour.
That's correct.
So I want to ask you a question. Let's just get right into this. How are people receiving the food? Is it being transported? Are they standing on lines? Are there tables? Are there people hosting their house? How is this happening?
Well, there's a combination of things going on. I mean, our company is called Local Harvest, and we're supplying most of the nonprofits, like 4 or 5 different nonprofit organizations that are preparing meals to get to people. And approximately 10,000 meals a day are being made. But it's getting a little trickier now to get it to the people that need it, because there used to be all in one place, in shelters or in their cars in one area, in schools. But now many of them have moved in with friends or hotel rooms because they asked the tourists to leave the island so that there'd be rooms available for the people that lost their homes. Um, so now some of the organizations are taking meals to the hotels, or have put information online so that people can contact them, and the food is delivered directly to the homes where they're staying. But we're also setting up produce stands in different
Wow.
malls where people can come and get free produce now that many of them have kitchens to cook, and they can pick up the produce. And if other people want it also, because some of the grocery stores aren't open, then they can give a donation, and then that money can be used to buy more produce from the local farms.
Wow. That's really ingenious. What you
That's
guys are doing, and I know we also want to try to help people. We have donated to the Lahaina Rotary Club there and their disaster fund. We want to get that information out today, how to do that, plus your guys' facility with web address and everything, and how to donate and spread that across the 205 countries, that will watch this either now live or later when they catch it.
Wow, that's wonderful. Thanks so much for the help and support.
Yeah, it all helps get the word out. So donating last week for us was a natural, and one of our guests watching right now is just mentioning he's been volunteering with Rotary since he was a kid. Nick Chauhan from India, and Rotary was mentioned to me by CJ Grace that um, she felt like that's also another good charity that's right there in Lahaina.
Yeah,
So
it is.
yeah.
And how about when it comes to cooking? Is there a concern now for a lack of electricity? Because you can't just be cooking just one location. So people that want to help with the cooking, is there a need for more generators, or has that up and running now, the electric situation?
Yeah, the electricity came back on um, a few days ago, probably 5 or 6 days ago, in the West Maui area. Um, what we're lacking now is internet. Is the main thing that we're lacking. But yeah, there's people can cook. There's electricity. There were some concerns about the water for a while, but now that seems to be taken care of. The water is safe.
Yeah, that's good, because I did read something about that some people had said they might have thought they got sick from drinking the water, and that it was coming from a well, and this was a concern as well.
Yeah, because the systems weren't working properly for a while, but I believe most of that's been taken care of.
Well, that's good. That's good to hear. Yeah. What's the best web address for us to put up for folks to donate to the Meals on Wheels, the Meals, Steve, with Local Harvest?
Well, for Local Harvest, we have a GoFundMe called Local Harvest 10,000 Meals a Day for Lahaina. And
Okay.
also, there's another good one, Homeless Heroes Hawaii, that is
Okay.
preparing. They're preparing about 5,000 meals a day.
I think I see you there, and let me just make sure. I want to show this to the world, and then we'll get your authorization to make sure this is. I think it is the correct one, but just to be good and safe. But I believe this is it right here.
Yes.
Okay, so
That's our,
local harvest, 10,000 meals a day for Lahaina folks, trying to raise $100,000.
correct.
Just over $6,000 raised. That's a lot of food. We need a lot more, obviously, $94,000 more. Let me just expand this here. The situation in Lahaina, you guys could see it. There's the photos. And Patty, is that big enough in New York for you to see?
You could make out of it. It probably could be a little bit bigger. It might be just my
Little bit.
screen.
A little bit bigger. Okay, yeah, I think I can make it a little bit bigger. Yeah,
There you
you go.
go.
That's a bit bigger there. So
Yeah. You see the trucks filled with goods. That's great.
yeah, I see green beans over here on the table. Is that green beans, Steve?
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
We bagged it up into 1 pound bags and gave them out.
Wow.
Yeah,
Amazing.
we had all kinds of things: dragon fruit, pineapple, papaya. About
Beautiful.
probably about 40 different items of produce that are all grown on Maui.
And if somebody wanted to give or donate food by plane, I know that's possible because we have 3 resorts in Maui that are operating at full tilt. But if they were to land, is there a nonprofit mechanism for them to get a credit for donating like 30,000 pounds of food?
Yeah, I'm sure there are organizations that could deal with that. I mean, I don't know, for that much food, they might want to go through the county government or something.
Okay. Yeah. I know sometimes they're crafty like that. They've got, food that's close to expiration date, and they want to do a donation. Could be from Food Lion, could be from Walmart, could be from anybody. And sometimes corporations have stock that's just sitting there in California in the warehouse.
Yeah,
They've not been able to sell it, and they're down to like 48 days left before expiration. So
yeah,
this is a great outlet for them to get like a $6.2 million credit and coordinate with the county government to get somebody on that island that has a 501c3 letter that can accept this food and give them that letter. That's all they want for their CPA to shut the accountant up. The corporate CPA is we've got to have that letter or this $6.2 million donation is not going to go through. And they're usually often willing to pay for the $68,000 in pilot and jet fuel through FedEx to get it there.
yeah.
They'll pay for that, and that becomes an expense on a line item expense against the company. So they're getting credit for the jet fuel as well.
Yeah, that's great. They might want to contact the Maui Food Bank because they handle the non-perishable foods like that, and donations like that would go a long way.
Wow. Yeah. This is a popular mechanism that companies that have close to date expiration food.
Mhm.
And let me just put that up there. I was also telling CJ yesterday about my work with Aloha Harvest on the gathering place of Oahu. But let me just share with people and corporations the Maui Food Bank, please. So there you can see the fires. I know people are asking right now. We're getting lots of requests. Are there any photos of the fires, the devastation, the destruction? And the concern was they can't use Getty images. We do realize your concerns. We're reading comments here about that. Welcome, CJ Grace, friend to everybody in the world there in Maui. CJ is just signing on with us, and this is the real photo right here, guys. So for
Yeah, it
everybody
was
down here,
interesting to see this because the evening or the afternoon of the fire, I was driving up through. I was trying to go through Lahaina to get to the airport to take my daughter to fly back to Arizona, and we got stopped by the traffic and the cops saying you can't enter. And we saw this. We saw this in front of us, just a black wall of smoke covering the whole sky with red highlights, and
yeah.
that's what it was.
And this is a great place to keep up with things too, because these donations come and go by the hour as to what they're getting. So we've been through this disaster assistance many times, Patty. We did a huge show for Puerto Rico with the hurricanes, and invested in several businesses there, if you remember, in Florida and Puerto Rico, Patty.
Yeah, that was hard too, and also there was mudslides. Also, the emergency vehicles couldn't even get to the people in need. It was just really, really difficult situation. Also, lack of the electricity didn't go on for a while. It was really hard. They actually had to fly in helicopters, right, with special units to be able to that are trained to be able to come down on the mountain from a helicopter. That's how severe it was. So this really brings back that, but the hope is there because we saw the recovery. It might be slow, but it's nice to know that there is hope and there is recovery.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's just go back to Steve's charity for a second there and the fundraiser. And Steve, I know your objective, it says here, is to do 10,000 meals a day for Lahaina, the initiative. And, you're focusing on essential nutritious ingredients for the meal preparation centers. Can you tell us about the meal preparation centers and about how many people are coming in each day?
Yeah, there's one called World Central Kitchen, and they go to disasters all around the world to help for
Yes.
a couple of months at least. They hire local chefs and they try to buy local food when it's available, and they've been very supportive. Sometimes we set up next to them in a shopping mall where they give out prepared meals and we give out fresh produce. That's one of the.
Yeah, that's Jose Andres. He's doing a fantastic job.
And then Hungry Homeless Heroes has a place up in Kula where they prepare hundreds of meals a day, and they also work with other with restaurants and other organizations that prepare meals also, and they pick up the produce from our warehouse and take it to those locations. And there's another organization called Ohana Aid that picked up 3 pallets of produce 2 days ago, and they're preparing several thousand meals a day also. So the total is more than 10,000 meals right now that is being prepared all by with mostly local food and local volunteers and chefs. So it's pretty amazing, to see what can be done when people come together like that.
Absolutely. And CJ,
Good morning.
we see you got on. I know it's been tough, and Steve has said, the internet is wonky. Thank God you guys have electricity. How are you holding up today?
I think that we're starting to sort of come out of the shell shock because I think the local organizations are the ones that have saved the day. I don't think people have been very happy with the response from federal and state government. And when the news came out about the sirens not being sounded as a deliberate act rather than that they failed, I think that the local people were, that was one of the things that really angered the local people, that decision had been made.
Yes. And we're still hearing a lot about that over here. And a lot of the things that I know at one point they said, you know, the reason the guy retired now, who was in charge of those sirens, is to save his pension. So he figured if he just resigns, he'll still get his pension instead of being fired.
That's correct. I mean, that's at least the thought. Whether that was true or not is a matter of conjecture. But and now even Josh Green, the governor here, says that he wishes that the sirens had been sounded, had been deployed. So, but I would have thought that something as important as that, he would have been involved in decision making, because it was a major disaster. So,
yeah, exactly. Yeah. I mean, these are just basic things myself as a cook that I would think, you know. So,
and
it's
there were also some rather strange anomalies, because the electricity and the phones went out before the winds came up in Lahaina town, and the internet, all of that went down beforehand, and so that made it almost impossible for people to communicate. And then the kids were out of school, and that's another issue, that there's most likely a very high death toll of children, and the government has been very unwilling to state how many kids are actually missing.
right. Exactly. So I think we have a lot of valid concerns, and even though in some cases we may be viewed as Howleys over here, I will never forget the love of living in Hawaii for a year and my friends who still live there now. And Ohana is so important to us here in America. We're very, very proud of their indigenous heritage and their customs and language. And we're very thankful, mahalo, nui loa, for everything that you guys are doing.
Yeah,
we're very, very interested in donating.
And we've got two great funds to donate to. Not just what you were hearing from with Steve, the Hungry Heroes Hawaii, hhhmaui.org, but also the Maui Community Foundation Maui Strong Fund. And both of those are tax deductible. And that's probably the easiest way to help, because a lot of people are volunteering. If you're in Maui, there's plenty of things you can do for hhhmaui.org. And they love having volunteers. But for people outside the islands, the most helpful thing is a financial donation. I was talking to Steve Calkins yesterday, and I can maybe cover some of the things that he said. And for quite some time, they didn't have donations of money. They asked for things to be brought that they needed, and volunteers and all of that. And people really felt a connection to those people that they were helping. Somebody would go and buy supplies in Costco and bring them to the kitchen, and then they'd start volunteering in the kitchen, and then they wanted to meet the people that those meals go to. And it was a whole wonderful connection that was made, way more connection than just donating money to on a website. But it's amazing how the community is pulled together, and how much connection there is between people. Everybody's trying to pull in there to help this situation. And
I think
local is best. Local is where you're going to get your another person we were talking to who was then, it was like they were completely abandoned. They had to do things themselves. The people that were shut off when they closed, they had a roadblock, so people were actually stuck in there without knowing what was going on for a day or two.
Absolutely. For those of you watching this now or around the world, You can see here Hungry Heroes Hawaii, Farm to Hungry plus supplies. 2 ohanas. This is 2 families in Hawaiian language. Ohana. You may remember that from seeing that on Disney, if you're a big fan of Disney. And you can see here 3,000 fresh meals per day. So here is some of the food, how to volunteer. And would you mind telling us about the 3 areas that are still open, that Maui is not pinned and shut down, that the airport has not been closed, and these various assorted lies, cease coming to Maui, everything is closed. Would you guys mind talking about these lies?
Absolutely, because initially both the governor, Josh Green, and the mayor, Richard Bisson, were saying, don't come to Maui. Don't come to Maui. If you're planning to come for the next month or so, don't come to Maui. But the only area that was really seriously affected, obviously, by the fire was West Maui, Lahaina, which is a great tourist draw, but there is also Wailea in the south of the island, Kihei in the south of the island, McKenna in the south of the island, and then areas at Haiku and Paia. All of those areas are back to normal. They were not affected by the fires in the way that Lahaina was. And by saying, don't come to Maui, to an island that is dependent upon tourism for most people's income, was very damaging. And the people here had already been suffering from the aftermath of the COVID lockdowns, where a lot of small businesses ended up closing. A lot of wonderful restaurants ended up closing. And now people were being told yet again not to come to Maui. And I already know of several restaurants that had to close just because they couldn't survive with bleeding money while people were not coming for several weeks. And, you know, I went on a walk, an ocean walk, walking on the beach at the sunset the other day. And normally there are quite a number of people doing that, tourists visiting, and it was pretty much deserted. And that isn't good news for the people who depend on those tourists for their livelihood. So yes, we are open for business. It's a beautiful place to visit. Please come, because we welcome you. Don't go to the west of the island. We don't want you gawking at the tragedy. Absolutely not. But we do want you coming and enjoying what's going on right now. And actually, some people have come as tourists and volunteered as part of their vacation to help the relief efforts.
That's very nice, because we were talking about that yesterday, and I hadn't had a chance to share that with Patty yet. But Patty, with as many medals as we have given out from the Presidential Center, don't you think it would be a good idea to establish like a Maui Heroes Medal, that if you come over, see the beauty of, you know, Oahu and Honolulu, and come over to Maui, and you could do 1 or 2 days of volunteer work and then spend 5 days over on the other 3 resorts that are open. And if you do that with a certain minimum amount of time and you're registered and logged in, you would then go back to the mainland, and you would have on your pantsuit or your suit coat or your dress a small medal that you could wear, a Maui hero or something like that. Maybe they're not a hero and people are enraged by that and angered. Maybe it says Maui.
How about a Maui volunteer pin, you know?
Volunteer.
I mean, you
get
know,
a
it's a
pin, or you get
humanitarian effort, you know, and a little pin to show your efforts, you know?
Yeah. I mean, I thought if it was a mini medal, that would get a lot of attention. People would ask, like, oh, what's
Absolutely.
that? Maui
Humanitarian aid. I mean, you know.
Humanitarian aid. How'd you get that? It looks like a medal hanging off of a small sash. How do you get that? Well, I went over, and my wife and children and I worked for 2 days in the thing. And actually, we were number 982, 983, 984, and 985. They're almost at 1,000 people who have flown in. They're flying in from Australia, New Zealand, Japan.
That's great. You know,
And
some of the
people say, "Well, look, I don't need a medal." It's that and the idea is outrageous and sickening. If they don't want to just come here and do it, it's like, listen, I've owned a marketing company for 42 years. When you have ambassadors on the earth in 205 countries walking around with that on, that is a marketing thing in itself that is causing people to ask, what's that? And then they aspire to want to do and to pitch in. And if they don't and they can't afford to go, then they make a donation of $5. If 2 of the 8 billion people, 2 billion people gave $5, that'd be a lot of money.
Yeah. And Steve, am I right in thinking that the farms are also very short-staffed because they lost labor over COVID, and now they're losing labor because so many of their people were living in Lahaina and had lost their homes. So those farms actually need assistance too, right? With labor.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it was hard for the farms to get enough labor before the fire. And now that a lot of their workers have lost their homes, they've moved back to the mainland or, living somewhere else on the island, they definitely need help. And
CJ, we got some photos, I believe, from Paul. Paul sent us, Paul Deslauriers sent us some photos. So if I can share that screen here, these were pretty shocking. I know everybody was worried about, don't show Getty photos. We're not going to do that. But these were ones taken locally. You can see the equipment set up here, guys. Tents. This is like every disaster zone. The 24-hour emergency lighting here, because you don't get to close at 8 o'clock at night. You've got people coming in 2, 3, 4 in the morning who drove from the other side of the island. And I think about this here, CJ, that poor guy with his yacht that was catching the fish every day and bringing it in. And then he ran the food truck, and he said he had to close his food truck and laid off all the employees until October or November.
That's when, yes, that is this was the South Maui Fish Company, owned by Hunter Betts, who's a fisherman. And he would go fishing every morning, and those would be what you would get in your fish tacos. Arguably, they were the best fish tacos on the island. And even Guy Fieri went to visit his restaurant and gave him a seal of approval. And he has closed because he said he was bleeding cash. He couldn't afford to stay open. He's hoping to be able to reopen in October. But his employees are now claiming unemployment. And what Hunter was doing was he was using his fishing boat to deliver supplies throughout the disaster when people were stranded there. And so thankfully his boat has survived. His boat did not get burned in the fire, but we're hoping that he's going to have the resources to be able to reopen that food truck. And so this is an example of a food truck that actually was incredibly successful, very popular. And even with something like that, he was not able to stay open. And so we do need the tourists back. He was based in Kihei. That was where the food truck was. And so we're now hoping that the tourists will come back, and some of these fine restaurants that have had to close will be able to reopen again. But that you never can tell. And a lot of people have had to leave the island, because if your home's burned on Maui, if you've lived in Lahaina, and we've heard of people, generations of people living in Hawaii, in Lahaina, because it was the former Hawaiian royal capital. It's the home of a lot of local indigenous people who've lived there for generations. But if your home's gone, what do you do? A lot of them have gone to stay with relatives in the mainland, and we don't know whether they will ever come back. So it's a real double whammy for the island on top of what happened during COVID.
Yeah, absolutely. And I want to apologize. I cut off Steve. He was trying to say something. Steve, go ahead.
Oh, no, I was just talking about the farms. West Maui was a big market for for our company and for the farmers, and they lost that business. And also because not many tourists are on the island now, they their other customers in other parts of the island are buying less. So we're trying to buy everything that the farm has available and fill our orders that we have, and also fill the orders from the nonprofits that are making the meals. So it's kind of balancing out. The farmers are not losing business right now because we're buying all the produce. But I was also talking about the labor situation where it's hard to get farm labor here. People can work in hotels and they can make as much or more money usually in the hotels, and there's not enough labor around, not enough people around to work in the farms. So a lot of times it's just the farm family that does all the work, and they're working around the clock practically just to keep the farm going. So any help in labor would be a wonderful thing.
Wow. And Patty, given that image that we were looking at, you are so blessed and skilled at helping us to be closer to the heavenly parent. I would just like to put that picture back up again and ask you to say a few words about that, because I mean, I could probably rustle up a prayer or thoughts, but I mean, look at that photo. What can we say to say goodbye, Patty, and to tell people that we love them?
Well, we could say this, that we can't undo what's been done. And we have to believe that if we're the survivors, that our loved ones don't want to see us stuck in sorrow, but rejoice in recovery. I'm going to cry because from what you guys been sharing, it seems like people are more than willing to help. The ones that are survivors, the ones that are there. And that's a beautiful thing. And I think that's what we have to walk away with is, even though this was a tragedy, the fellowship is there, the community is there, and now they need our help, the people outside the circle. And that's the gap that's difficult to fill, but it can be filled, because I could be a testimony that we suffered a couple of catastrophes here in New York. And not to take away from the show highlighting Maui and West Maui, which is Lahaina, where the catastrophe happened. I want to give hope to West Maui. I want to give hope because there is recovery. There is recovery. It's happening. It just needs to keep going and giving the avenue of like a show like this to be able to raise awareness and spread the word. Before you know it, it will just be a part of history, and our prayers continue. There are people that are missing. I do want to highlight, I don't want to bring anybody down, but this is what's happening. And there are people missing. And the FBI is helping families make sense of just like where, because there's an unsettling feeling when you don't know what happened to your loved one. So they are requesting people that are, from Maui to send DNA. That there is still a long list of people that believe that are missing. And there is a phone number that we can call if you believe your loved one is missing, or you think somebody that been misplaced. There is a number. It's 808-566-4300. Again, you could contact any of us and we'll provide that information again. I think we'll be able to put it on.
Patty, let me get that up live for everybody. You say 808
566 566 4300.
4300.
And this is for unaccounted people. And they're the hotline that's going to help. That's where the FBI is now hands on for, you know, accounting for these missing loved ones, because that's unsettling. But going back to understanding, having a sense of understanding, I'm not going to claim I know what you feel like, because I don't, but I have a sense, because we suffered 9/11, which also had a catastrophe, tragedy, whatever you want to call it. People were missing, people died, and the recovery took a while, but it was able to be done. And people now are, you know, in a memorial, and we can pay tribute to them, because so many remains were able to be found due to modern science. There is great ways and great measures that we take now to be able to confirm a loved one. But nonetheless, we want to remember those people. And we also want to remember the people that are the survivors, who are having to cope with those feelings on top of surviving, you know, because when you're dealing with grief, it's also a thing. And it's, you know, I'm laughing because it's not funny. It's kind of like a coping mechanism. Like, now what? You know, I have to survive, but I'm also feeling a certain sort of way. It's about finding meaning. But I think if you direct those feelings of hurt and sorrow, and put it into purpose, and wherever you are, whether you had to leave the island, then make a phone call if you know somebody that's missing, or call the Hungry Heroes Hawaii, or the Homeless Heroes, or Steve's Local Harvest. Do something instead of just staying paralyzed. And then, with that being said, if you're a griever, you're paying it forward. In a sense, you're paying it forward in the legacy of those that suffered. And I'm complete.
One thing I will say is that it seems that the death count has been seriously undercounted. One dirty little secret of Hawaii is that other states would fly in their homeless. It was a way of other states getting rid of their homeless problem. They would give them one-way tickets to Hawaii. And so we had a considerable homeless population in Lahaina. And many of those people, we won't know their names. They won't have family or loved ones or relatives or friends reporting them missing. And according to what I heard from someone who was talking to firemen, they came across at least 100 bodies that they thought were from homeless people that they couldn't identify. And I don't see those people in the count of the people that have died. So there are a lot of people who nobody is going to report missing, but they may well have died in the fire. The other problem is that there would have been a lot of children in the death toll because the schools were closed. There was an earlier fire around 6:30 or so in the morning near Lahaina Luna High School. And so that high school was closed, and I believe all the other schools were closed too. And some of the children would have been latchkey kids whose parents had to go to work, and they would have been all on their own in Lahaina, in the front line of the fire there, without internet. The phone went down and the sirens didn't sound. So they were like sitting ducks. They didn't know what was happening until probably it was too late to do anything.
And we do have Paul Des Lauriers has come on. Paul, how are you feeling today? How are you holding up?
Well, Martin, we are dealing with a tremendous tragedy here in our community, and we are doing the best we. But not only that, we're also looking at what actually happened. now that some of these initial needs are being taken care of, there's a lot of questions that remain too, as to how this actually occurred and what amplified the impact. For example, there were exits being blocked by police. There were issues that it could have been Hawaii Electric, who haven't been maintaining their different equipment. So there are a lot of different questions that we have, and there's a lot of anomalies in the fire also that we're questioning. So as we start to go through this rubble that remains, which is very significant, Martin, I sent you some photographs. I don't know if you can, if you want to put some of them on, but they certainly do look at the scope of what we're dealing with, and it's heartbreaking. And at the same time, we have questions too as to what actually occurred during that event.
Yes, sir. We got the photos and we were showing them before you had come on, Paul. And we also had some prayers to the Heavenly Parent.
Okay, great.
Yeah. And thank you. Thank you so much for doing that. It has been concerning to many people. They don't want to show Getty images or Associated Press and get sued and attacked. You know, it's not the time for that right now. But those photos from yourself were very helpful.
Could you put up the photo again of with the boats in it? I wanted to say something about the banyan tree.
Oh yes, the famous banyan tree, and I want to check and see if I don't know enough, but I do know enough that quite possibly King Kamehameha may have sat under that tree. How old was that tree? Wasn't it hundreds of years old, thousands possibly?
It's 150 years old. I believe it may be the second oldest banyan tree in the world, but it was 150 years old.
Amazing. Yeah.
So anyway, the tree was a symbol of peace and aloha in Hawaii, and it was burned, but they've checked it out and it's alive on the inside.
Wow.
And they are watering it. They think it's going to come back to life.
But that there is not the banyan tree.
No, that's not it.
Yeah, and this is a weird photo. Can you explain this, Paul? What you had something to say about that particular photo, Paul? Because it's kind of unusual. It looks like it's burned on the inside rather than the outside, that particular tree.
Yeah. Well, he'll come back to us. He's still there. Paul, can you hear us?
I think his internet is not quite as
Yeah, I know it's been a challenge for everybody with internet access.
This photo shows the banyan tree.
Well, unfortunately, my computer's a little slow, so I don't see the image that you're referring to. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Yeah. Maybe, I think, Paul, I know you have some interesting points to make about some of the causes of the fire.
Yeah, so if I can you hear me okay?
Yes, we can.
If you can hear me okay, just let me know. Okay, great. So there are a lot of anomalies, as I mentioned, and some of them were that if you look at the burn sites, there are a lot of trees that still remain standing. And if you look at the characteristics of those trees, they were burnt from the inside while the bark remains. And that one picture that I sent in was the leaves are actually on the tree and the bark is intact, but yet the tree is dead and burnt from the inside. And again, that's one of the anomalies. Another anomaly is that there are a lot of plastic that was left that didn't burn, yet there was metal that burnt and glass that melted in those same areas. So there's a lot of that follow the normal cycle of fires, especially when we look at a normal house fire that's about 1,500 degrees, and this metal melts at about 22 class. So there's questions we have as to how this fire could have gone through such a huge fireball so quickly. That's one of the things that the witnesses kept on saying, that all of a sudden it was there. There was no warning. So there's questions about why the sirens didn't go off. There's questions about the water and the water pressure that existed there. There's questions also that we have about police blocking roads that were exits. And so there's things that doesn't really make a lot of sense in terms of how a normal fire would act, and also the response that occurred. So there are concerns, and that's why we're having a citizens investigation into what occurred to this fire. And people can, if they want more information about this investigation, you can get that at Maui Community Investigation.org. That's Maui Community Investigation.org. And so again, there are many analogies. There's many other things that we're looking at. For example, some of the initial causes that they were saying was of the fire was climate change and global warming. But yet when you look at the statistics and the numbers, it doesn't really add up in terms of the amount of temperature shifts that we occurred in Maui. We have records since 1946, and there's really not much fluctuation at all in the temperatures from year to year. And so again, we have questions as to the cause. Some people said it was Hurricane Dora that really brought about those high winds, but yet the hurricane was 500-mile hurricane.
500 miles south of the island, right? Is that what
more than about 50 miles in terms of high winds from its epicenter. So again, this.
Yeah, I think what Paul was saying was that the hurricane was actually 500 miles south of the island.
And so that's why we're doing this citizens investigation. Certainly.
Yeah, which you have every right to do, and try to gather as much information as you can. And people like us don't find it intrusive or abrasive or inappropriate.
Yeah, I have to say I was surprised when I saw the weather maps that Hurricane Dora wasn't that close to the island, and 500 miles is too far away for that kind of heavy winds, the incredible 60 to 90 mile an hour winds that were experienced in Lahaina. And Lahaina is on the west side of the island, and Dora was actually passing south of the island. And as Paul was saying, generally the hurricane needs to be 50 miles or closer to have that kind of devastating effect, and it was 500 miles south of the island.
Exactly. We're going to take a short commercial break, guys, for about 4 minutes. We'll be back in a second. When we come back, we're going to take a look at that Maui Fish Company, the South Maui Fish Company, featured on Diners, Drives, and Dives. And we're going to be asking a critical question with Patty's guidance for the folks who love Maui and that live there. And I think for the rest of us around the world, the other 204 countries, is how should Lahaina be restored? Should we allow the developers to come in and turn it into a highly commercialized, area with neon, much like Honolulu, or should it be fully restored, with the old world dignity? Because it was kind of an old world area, a beautiful place to go and see. And so is that how it should be restored completely? In other words, you would go into the photographs and you would restore the entire area of Lahaina exactly step by step for $6 to $9 billion over 4 to 10 years. using the photos to put it back together. These and a couple more questions when we come back, piling up from the audience here. Give us a second, guys, and like I said, we're going to take a look at the famous fish company and this poor guy with his truck when we come back. Take a break, get something to drink if you want to, and give us a second. We'll be right back.
Hi everyone, I am Ambassador Prince Kojo Hilton, a visual artist, a filmmaker, and a theater practitioner. Check out the new film festival, the U.S. Presidential Service Center, on Film Freeway.
Let's play a game. खेल भी?
You know what? ये लाइफ सेट वाली लाइन है स्कैम।
Yun nga, Medla.
सारा लाइफ सेट करते करते पूरी लाइफ ही मैनेज हो जाती है।
Наші партнери, компанія Rotary, відправили чимало гуманітарної допомоги. Тепер справа за нами. Фонд Фенікс Груп готує до відправки допомогу туди, де вона потрібна, туди, де на неї чекають. Слава Україні! Героям слава!
You're like a circle that floats around me, keeping me safe and sound. And when I fall.
Hey, Chef Outer here. Want to tell you about my Amazon best-selling memoir cookbook, A Chef is Born, chock full of recipes, also ranked the 77th book of all time out of 99, according to the Book Authority.
It's a good book, but I do a better chef than you.
Did you ever miss someone who has passed away? Now there's the Miss You Gram app, giving people a brand new way to tribute the lives of deceased loved ones, or simply remember tender memories. This exclusive app is a user-friendly social media platform, giving people everywhere a respectable and comfortable place to create private or public memoriams. Miss You Gram has additional features like chat rooms and links to deceased databases and inspirational quotes. Users can also comment and connect on public posts. Join us and keep memories alive forever. Everyone wants to be remembered. For more details and download on the Google Play or Apple App Store, visit miss-u-gram.com.
Well, guys, we are back, and we said we were going to take a look at the famous fish company. And they have been working to go out and fish every day. Luckily, this poor guy, CJ, told us about, was able to get in his boat and escape the flames out into the Pacific Ocean. He didn't lose his boat that he would go out and fish with. And, his slogan, always fresh, never frozen. And then he would come back in with the fish and, of course, get into the truck and drive around, and you'd get fish tacos, and he would sell out every day. So also very famous for his poke bowls, something I fell in love with. And if you don't know what poke is, it's a wonderful fresh salad, typically chopped up, fresh fish in there, and a little bit of sprinkling of seaweed, made a couple of different ways. It's so exciting to see we have a poke buffet restaurant chain here in America. And when I saw that they had a poke chain, I went out of my damn mind and had to go over there to a local town called Gastonia and get a poke bowl. But this guy also very famous, isn't he, CJ, for his poke bowls?
Yes, and poke is usually made from ahi, which is the raw tuna that you would get in a sushi in a sushi restaurant too. And he would have amazing seasoning. He had a spicy and a regular one with a lot of seaweed and seasoning. That was a great favorite, and I have enjoyed many fish tacos at the South Maui Fish Company, and I am really praying that they're going to be back in business in October. The wonderful organization, the employees there were great and very gracious to everybody, and so we have a really thriving food truck industry here on Maui. That was thriving after COVID because it was so much easier to operate as a food truck rather than a restaurant when there were a lot of COVID restrictions here. I'm hoping that most of them are going to be able to survive. As I said earlier on the show, sadly, the South Maui Fish Company had to close its doors in the aftermath of the fire because of reduced tourism in Kihei, where that food truck was. Even though all of the areas apart from Lahaina are now open for business. And so now is probably a great time to come to Maui because it won't be super crowded. And if you want to do some public service, you can also maybe volunteer at the same time. So you can have a vacation and feel good at the same time, feel like you're really helping people.
How cool of an idea is that, folks? Thank you so much. And getting back to the other part of our question, I promise when we come back, about the restoration and building of Lahaina, rebuilding of it. How should that be done?
Well, it's a very complicated issue, and local Hawaiians are very concerned about a land grab by billionaires and corporate interests who for decades have been trying to get hold of the prime real estate that was Lahaina town. And it had been held by local people for generations. And so there are some controversies about that. And the cure that some officials suggest to this may be actually worse than the disease, having the government buy the land, prevent it going to outside interests. That's something called eminent domain. But in effect, that forces people to sell their land to the government rather than being allowed to do a private sale. And locals are saying, well, can you trust a corrupt government in the pockets of developers to avoid creating another Waikiki rather than a rebuild that respects Hawaiian culture? And I think that is the nub of the problem. That's the crux of the problem.
Exactly. And respecting the Hawaiian people is what we want to do. I had a huge Hawaiian friend of mine. He was a sailor on board a ship, a warship in the Navy. I was in the Navy a long time, retired after 30 years. His name's Johnny Lassiste, and he lives in the Gathering Island, Oahu, with his wife. Francesca. And one day I come up to the chief's quarters and he noticed my flip-flops were locals. He saw the little logo on their locals. He's like, where did you get those flip-flops from? And I said, well, these are Hawaiian flip-flops, right, Patty? Locals brand. So he was just shocked that I had those. And I told him, I said, just love the Hawaiian people. Feel very regretful about what happened in history. The entire time I spent there, whether it was eating musubi or whatever, at Sam Choi's restaurant, at Alan Wong's restaurant. I worked with Alan Wong on accreditation for University of Hawaii, Kapiolani campus, and many other campuses teaching chefs. There's always one of trying to be respectful as a outsider, as most respectful as I possibly could be, and always honoring their culture and even learning different things about their customs and whatnot. One day, a friend of mine, Rick Scott, who works on Oprah Winfrey's estate, he come over, and I put a huge green lei with leaves on them, and he said, "Oh, this is the king's lei." It was like a full-length green, and I didn't know that, you know. And Patty, had you been to Hawaii yet?
Oh man, why'd you have to say that? In my mind, I've been there 100 times. Ever since the Brady Bunch went, I've been wanting to go, but I have not physically been there.
So, I mean, seriously, like even the bushes, when I walked around, you could just pick flowers and make your own lei. There's enough flowers. And as you get off the plane, you know, the ladies are there putting the leis just like Hawaii Five-0, just like you always saw in all the movies and shows. A lot of it people think is fake, or they're making that, or it's plastic. It's like, it's not plastic. These are like real flowers that they're making. So just always thinking about being respectful. And any other comments about how Lahaina should be rebuilt or concerns?
May I ask if was there any conversation on new roads, being that there was only that one road? Now, I haven't been there, so I don't know if there's even room for expanding that road, but it seemed to be such a tragedy only to have that one road.
Well, what I heard is that FEMA is looking into building 2 roads, because normally you should have one road that's 2 lanes and another road that's 4 lanes. So they are looking already, apparently the government engineers are already looking into locations to have a 4-lane highway, so that there would be 2 ways in and out. That is something that I heard that FEMA is looking into.
And how about you or Paul or Steve? How do you guys feel about that? Are you in agreement with that?
Yeah, well, they started a bypass road around Lahaina a few years ago, and they only completed half of it. So it's still a 2-lane, but they can make it 4-lane. The land is there and it's already graded. They just have to put in the road. And as far as inside the city, they could probably add another lane in the main street that goes through the city.
There's a lot of questions, I think.
Oh, I believe the connection is lost.
Oh, it looks like, did we lose for a second there?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Paul, we didn't hear what you said. But yeah, there are a lot of questions about the land grab issue, and the
roads is that we've had a difficulty in terms of looking at what exactly happened.
Yeah, I think we're still having problems just with the connection. And it is difficult right now during this time. You were breaking up there a little bit, Paul.
Yeah, we weren't able to hear what you said.
Yeah, okay, so maybe hopefully I can get on this little stream here and be okay. There's, in terms of the roads, about the exits of people from the road, because they were blocked by some policemen. And so that's something that's being investigated. There's issues also have been earmarked for Smart City, and Maui was one of them. And so
yeah,
there's
I think
concern in terms of what the future of that whole area will be. I certainly now Josh Green, our governor, has made statements that the government will be taking control of the land.
And that's a concern. That is a concern if he's, because there have been documents out there about.
So did you hear? We were able to get that without.
We didn't hear you. You keep dropping out, Paul. But I know that what you're trying to say is that there are documents out there about the desire to create a smart city in Lahaina, or even a whole smart island. And local Hawaiians would not be happy with that. That's not what, that would not mean rebuilding Lahaina with respect to the local Hawaiian culture. And the idea of a smart city or a 15-minute city is an anathema to what was there before. Now, it was a bit of a concern that I think 2 months before the fire, there was actually an ordinance passed where it said that in the event of an emergency, there wouldn't need to be full permitting process that would normally have to happen, even if that land was heritage land that was part of the ancient Hawaiian culture. And normally there are fairly strict permits and permitting processes that you have to go through. And this ordinance seemed to show that in the event of a major natural disaster, that would not need to happen. And where people are concerned about that is that it means that developers can come in and build, high-rise condos and this kind of stuff without having to go through the kinds of permits that they would have had to go through beforehand. And so we also have a conflicting demand for the need for housing for all the people that lost their homes, but we also need to have it built in a way that respects the culture. I think it will be absolutely impossible to rebuild Lahaina in the identical way that it was built before. Some of those places had been there for 150 years. It was an old whaling town, and a lot of the buildings there weren't to code, and particularly the ones that
they were grandfathered under code. Yeah,
they were grandfathered
in, and the old electrical, even screw in fuses.
Right. So those won't be built back the way
it would be nice if there was a board of local people who really loved historically the look, and they had a say in anything that somebody tries to bring through. Because I've gone to a lot of communities worldwide, and the ugly neon, like in Rothenburg, Abdotalba in Germany, the largest walled castle city, you're not allowed to have any of that kind of crazy stuff with neon signs in a medieval city. And even one of our guests said he saw the McDonald's and he was going to go eat at McDonald's tonight. I was like, are you kidding me? You're in Germany and there's no McDonald's in the castle city. He's like, yes, there was. I saw it. It's underground. They had a little sign. I was like, about 2 hours later, we were walking by. We're like, oh my gosh, how disgusting. It is a McDonald's. He's like, well, that's where I went, underground. I went down there to eat. This guy, we called him Wimpy. He had to eat a hamburger every day. He had a hamburger or a cheeseburger every day. And I couldn't believe he found a McDonald's. But the point being was they did not allow them to have any of those grotesque signs, pink colors with neon green walls that are painted outside, the colors, the palette, the look and feel, the architectural design, the historical significance from the board, all is always being monitored and controlled to avoid that type of craziness that would destroy a former historic and beautiful area. And I think I speak for the world when we say we're very against that.
Yeah, and it might be better to have land trusts, communally owned land trusts, rather than have the government own the land and take control.
Irreversible land trusts. Right. I want to ask a question for the locals. How are you receiving your most up-to-date information about what we're talking about? Are there town halls that the local politicians are coming to speak with the people face to face? Is there a motherboard? How do people know that the information is correct that they're getting?
That's a very interesting question, because there was a rather bizarre statement that came out of, I think it was Josh Green was saying, don't look at social media, just listen to us. We know what's going on. Don't follow social media. But actually, there was more accurate information on some social media and on the internet than we were getting from the government. So
that's true. That's true.
There was a lot of information that we felt, or that certain people felt was being withheld. One example being how many children have died in this disaster, that the authorities did not want to touch that issue because it's too explosive, the idea of how many kids actually died in this fire. And there are ways that they can come up with a much more accurate death count or missing person count. They've got rosters of all the kids that were at school who may or may not be showing up now. They've also got, they could have cell phone data, for instance, the number of cell phones that were active before the fire compared to the number of cell phones that are active now, because some of those, or a good number of the cell phones that are no longer active, may have been accompanying people in the fire who died in the fire. So there are tools that could be used, and I'm sure that the authorities have been looking at some of this data, but they aren't telling the public everything they know.
Well, I just wanted to end today because Patty, the host of our show, is a Rotarian, as well as I am, and our governor, Mark Merriam, there in Rotary District 5000. They do have, I donated last week, as CJ said, cash is best. Please stop sending clothes. I think today another report about clothes. We have enough clothes now with containers of clothes and shipping containers that are showing up filled with clothes. So the trailers that are coming over, that's great. The free campers, 30, 40, 50 free campers coming by ship from San Diego. It's very easy to donate to many of these different funds. The Hungry Heroes, 10,000 Meals, Rotary. We showcased at least 4 or 5 different ways. Maui Food Bank to donate to, thanks to Steve. And I would like to just throw it over to you, Patty, and give you an opportunity, please, just to say goodbye today. And I don't think this is going to be goodbye forever, because we talked about coming back on with CJ whenever she feels it is necessary. It wouldn't mean it's next Friday, gang. It might be that she says, look, here's what's happening now, and we need this to stop. And that might be next Thursday. It might be in 10 days from now. But I do feel like this is not some cute little show that we did one time to pat ourselves on the back and go off for the rest of the year feeling good. I think we need to follow up on what the people of Maui need.
Well, the foundation of the show, again, Miss U Graham is the sponsor, and the foundation of the show is to remember what they meant, passing a heritage. They are not lost. And most importantly, we are the living. So let's help each other and help us know that we're not alone, and we're here with you, and we're going to do whatever it takes. And there's a lot of things that we definitely have to dive deeper in, starting with that investigation, because when you're telling me that the government wants to take over the land and some of these houses weren't up to code, and there was a road that started to be built and then it stopped. There's just a lot of things that, when you start putting the pieces together, you come up with a conclusion. Again, I'm not a detective. I don't work for the government. I'm here to pay tribute to Lahaina, Maui, West Maui. We're here for you. We love you. And thank you for being here to raise awareness and helping each other.